Hello, everyone. A big warm welcome to this small webinar about the humanitarian situation in Ukraine. We have decided to invite companies and organizations around to give an overview of the humanitarian situation with a clear focus on what business can do to help. The war in Ukraine is horrific and it affects us all. We want to help and do our part. And it's important for us to make sure that our members have the right information about the situation and also a better understanding of how we can support if you want as a business or an organization. The UN Global Compact's mandate is to promote moving towards a global partnership. We have a principle-based approach to enhanced cooperation between the United Nations and all relevant partners. We are, as Global Compact, not a humanitarian organization, so we are very, very happy that we have representatives from UNHCR and OCHA to give us the insights from you. We also have we'll give you a presentation from Karen Smith from OCHA, from Eva Robumaule from UNHCR, and then we have Jens Vandel from the Danish United Nations Association and a long career within the UN system. And we also have with us the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Fenja Yamaguchi Fasting, who is the Deputy Director on the Department for Humanitarian Action, Civil Society and Engagement. But first of all, I will give the word to my UN colleague, Ole Lund Hansen. He will not join with a picture as he is traveling, but the word to you, Ole.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah. And yeah, I'll be very brief also because I'm joining from the airport. But yeah, just on behalf of the UN Global Compact, just want to join Sarah in thanking everyone for joining today. Also thanking those, companies, organizations, and participants of the Global Compact that have already supported the humanitarian effort of the UN and civil society partners, and those that are interested in continuing or starting to do so. Sarah already said, right, we're not, as the UN Global Compact itself, part of the humanitarian response on the ground, but we believe we can make a contribution by supporting companies around the world in navigating, that humanitarian system, understanding what the needs are and how individual companies, based on whatever opportunities they have, how they can best support, how you can all best support. So one of the things we've done for this is to develop with OCHA and UNHCR a small business guide. And we're doing webinars like this together with our networks around the world. So really, hopefully helping companies understand what the needs are, who to get in touch with, about different opportunities you may see for supporting. That business guide is to be found on the Global Compact's website, on the Danish Network's website. There's also a link to the flash appeal that I think we'll hear more about today. So again, thanks to everyone for joining. Thanks to our colleagues from UNHCR, OCHA, and to you, Jens, also for joining today.
Thank you so much, Ole. Just to tell you that we'll be recording this session in order to spread the words if someone didn't have time to join right now. But also a big thank you for joining, and we'll also share the flash appeal and the OCHA guide in the chat. The next speaker I'll give the word to is Karen Smith, Private Sector Engagement Advisor for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs at UN OCHA. So the word to you, Karen.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and thanks everybody for joining today. And also thanks, I'm sure many of you have already offered support, so we're sincerely appreciative of that. I'm calling from Lviv in Western Ukraine. I arrived in Poland about 5 weeks ago now, and it has been an unprecedented response, to say the least. On March 1st, the Secretary General launched 2 documents. One is a flash appeal, and that is for projects and needs within Ukraine. It is targeting 6 million people for the initial 3 months. It builds on the 2022 Humanitarian Response Plan that was already in place before the crisis. So the UN had, an active UN country team and agencies in Ukraine before this, but obviously the scale up is immense at the moment. The Interagency Regional Refugee Response Plan was also launched on the same day, and that's for the countries surrounding Ukraine. So the two documents complement each other. And I'm sure that Eva will speak more to that, and I will not go any further into that response. So we did do the business guide that was issued on March 1st in conjunction with the plans, but obviously things have evolved. I would say, we have situation reports from within Ukraine, which, Sarah, I can send to you. People can sign up if they want them. They were initially daily, but now we're doing them 3 times a week. But it just gives you an idea of what's happening, what's been going into the country. And so, for example, now we have 3.6 million internally displaced, 6.5 million refugees at the moment. And obviously things are changing by the day, if not the hour. And the UN has scaled up immensely, and supplies are getting in, particularly into the West. And we're working at accessing people in the affected areas the best that we can. I think there's, so I can sign you up for the daily situation reports. The other thing with this response is it's been tricky. Obviously, there's a large contingent of Ukrainians that are, involved in the response from a military perspective. And we need to really ensure that the humanitarian response is distinct from that. We really need to focus on the humanitarian principles of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence. And that is critical for our work going forward. That's how we can continue to work in places like Afghanistan and Syria. And, given every Ukrainian male between a certain age can be conscripted, this is tricky. And it's obviously very emotional for Ukrainians, and we completely understand that, but we're doing all that we can to separate those two things. And we've encouraged people at the beginning to, supply cash, and it has come forward. And we're really, truly grateful for that. There's been a lot of unsolicited donations, which has been challenging, to say the least. We do have an informal UN group where we're talking about in-kind contributions and trying to get together a list of key asks from across the agencies. We meet weekly. And I talked to your MOFA this morning about that. So it's coming in, but just realizing that this has been unprecedented. I mean, we're all working full out. I think I've been working 12 to 18-hour days for the last 5 weeks or something like that. So we're doing the best we can to get that information, and we appreciate all the contributions that people want to make. But I also just want to remind people that this is for the long run. Even if the conflict stopped tomorrow, this is months and years. So even if you're not able to contribute today, or you want to hold back a portion, until we can get into the country and get to these areas and do, comprehensive needs assessments to find out what the true needs are, that's going to take some time. And so the flash appeal will be updated as we get that information. I was just at the intercluster group yesterday about how we're trying to get that, but it's just not possible because of the security at the moment. So as the days evolve, we'll get that more detail for you. So that's just a very broad overview, and I'm happy to answer questions. But I can't go without saying that before this crisis happened, there was 275 million people globally in need of our support, and they're equally deserving of our support. So please don't forget them either. There's a massive focus on Ukraine that we've never seen before, but we also have to remember these other people in need around the globe. We're having, a drought in East Africa and many other things going on. So I'm happy to leave it at that, Sarah. I'm going to keep it super brief. And as I said, we're going to try and update the business guide. We work really closely with Global Compact globally. It's been fantastic. And when we do that, obviously, it'll be shared with everyone. But I'll put my contact details in the chat. Happy to answer any questions. And I think it goes over to Eva to talk about UNHCR.
Thank you so much, Karen. And we're so happy that you're joining us also from where you are in Poland, where you can really see the consequences of the things happening. I'll give the word directly to you, Eva Roby-Maule. You're head of private sector partnerships at UNHCR, and you're based in Denmark.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you so much to the UN Global Compact network in Denmark for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here with my colleague from OCHA, Karen Smith. I'm very pleased to see that there's also really great attendance today from the Danish private sector. So thank you for that. I will also try to be brief. There's a lot to talk about here, but I've been told that I only have 7 minutes. Just as a matter of introduction, yes, I lead the UNHCR's private sector team focusing on Denmark. We work from UN City in Copenhagen. UNHCR also has our global hub for private sector engagement, also based in Copenhagen. So I work very closely with the global colleagues who are reaching out to the private sector in more than 40 countries as we speak. For those who are maybe not that familiar with UNHCR, with this not so easy acronym, the UN Refugee Agency, we are mandated globally to ensure the protection of refugees, to ensure that they are assisted also during emergencies, and to find durable solutions to their plight. So that is our very clear-cut mandate. That is what we do. That is, of course, a very complicated task. We are, as Karen also was highlighting, a humanitarian agency. So neutrality and impartiality is very, very important to our work. Just a few words about the ongoing crisis. I think everybody knows what is going on from the intensive media coverage. We have a full-blown humanitarian emergency going on. UNHCR is providing the numbers to the world. We have a very excellent data portal. I can also provide you with the link, which on daily basis updates the numbers of people who've been forced to flee their homes. So currently today we have over 10 million displaced. 3.6 million have moved from Ukraine to the neighboring countries. That has increased very, very rapidly over the past weeks. We have from the outset had a planning figure of 4 million refugees outside of Ukraine. This is only a planning figure and it will be updated, I'm sure. And at the same time, we have 6.5 million internally displaced, so people who have been forced to flee their homes due to the ongoing war. So UNHCR has moved to our highest level of emergency level, so what we call level 3, which is the highest in our emergency system, and that means that we are in full crisis mode with a lot of expert teams in Ukraine and in the neighboring countries. We already, before these hostilities broke out 4 weeks ago today, we were already solidly operational in Ukraine with 6 different hubs because of the events that have been going on in eastern part of Ukraine, where there were many displaced and a lot of needs. So we already had a strong presence with 6 different hubs in Ukraine when this started. Now, of course, the situation is dramatically changed and worsened. So just to say that UNHCR is on the ground in Ukraine, western, central and eastern part of Ukraine, and also in all the neighboring countries where we also have large operations going on. We in the neighboring countries where we have 6.3 refugees, they are recognized prima facie as refugees by UNHCR. UNHCR leads the refugee response. We do that in support of the local authorities This is how we work. And we do that working with a lot of partners, UN partners and international NGOs and local partners. So we lead and coordinate the refugee response in all the neighboring countries. Inside Ukraine, it's a different situation. That is where OCHA is the main coordinator, but in the UN cluster system, it's a very complicated system. Organizations are giving a lead role, and UNHCR, as we usually do, we are leading the cluster that is responsible for protection matters and for shelter and non-food items. I believe we also co-lead now on logistics. So it's a massive, but Karen can talk more about that. It's a massive coordination exercise where UNHCR is using our expertise to lead on in these sectors, but also implement and make sure that aid is delivered. It's very complicated to talk about exactly what is being done, because it's a long list of activities. It's very much focused on protection, on ensuring that there are that we know what the needs are, that we know who people are, the registration to make sure that there are reception centers and transit centers, that we know about the vulnerabilities that people have, that we can identify the vulnerable groups. 90% of those who flee Ukraine and who've crossed the border are women and children. We know that there are many vulnerable groups amongst these many millions of refugees, unaccompanied minors who need very specialized support. We are gravely concerned about the risk for trafficking and women being in vulnerable situation in this. So a lot of efforts are focused on ensuring that those who have very special protection needs are getting the support and the information and the guidance that they need. Just briefly on the private sector, we have seen an overwhelming support from not only the Danish public, but also Danish companies and foundations in the last 4 weeks. It has kept us busy, but it's been busy in a very positive way, because we've been really overwhelmed with the show of support. Companies donating funds to our relief efforts, organizing employee fundraising campaigns. We have seen some companies also being able to donate in-kind items, and there UNHCR has a long and very dynamic list of items that we need to be transported to our operations in Ukraine and in the neighboring countries. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also been helpful in facilitating this. We were able quite quickly in the crisis to organize a shipment from Jysk that kindly donated a large amount of warm blankets that they had in stock in Jylland, and with the kind assistance of DSV, who offered to transport this for free, we were actually able to ship that down to Poland, to our big warehouse in Poland, quite quickly. Jysk has also donated other items, but it's an ongoing dialogue we have. But so we have a dynamic list of items that we need, and that we very much welcome if companies can help us with. I want to say we are a big organization and our needs are very large. So we also, when we handle in-kind donations, it's usually big volumes. But we need, you can imagine, we are responsible for shelter and non-food items, etc. So a lot of items, like mattresses and foldable beds and warm blankets and jerry cans and things that are really sort of emergency items. We also need warehouse space. We need transportation by road and by air. So I'm very happy to if there are companies listening today think that they have items that that could perhaps be useful for our operations, get in touch, and we will check against the lists that are continuously updated and quite dynamic. So I think I will stop here. As Karen said, we also have UNHCR issued a supplementary appeal a couple of weeks ago, sort of combining our needs inside Ukraine and in the neighboring countries. We're happy to share that. And also we have updates, flash updates. They are issued between 4 and 5 every 4 or 5 days. It's all publicly available and easy to access and quite good in keeping sort of abreast with what's going on and what we do on the ground in Ukraine and in the neighboring countries. So for me, just a huge appeal. If anyone would be interested in supporting our operations, we would be very grateful for support, financial support, in-kind support. Our team is available to help and facilitate this. So thank you so much.
Question, Eva, and maybe also Karen. Christian, he asks, is there anything one can do as a natural person to help beyond the company? I know we're a business meeting, but
yes, if I can add, we have also received tremendous response from individuals who have donated funds to us. So individuals can donate fund, they can organize a fundraiser, collect money for us. We're grateful for that. Every dollar counts in this situation. We have a huge need. UNHCR's need is currently $510 million US, and it will increase because, as Karen says, the needs are evolving every day and every week, and the situation is absolutely horrifying. And these people, they are horrified, they are traumatized. They have left their husbands and sons, many of these women who come with children, and inside Ukraine, of course, situation is even worse, and we just need all the help we can get. Yes.
And I could just add to that, obviously the financial contributions are extremely helpful. Also, but please consider not doing in-kind contributions on a small level. It's really difficult to manage. And I know people do it from the goodness of their hearts, but it's, the amount of stuff coming in, and I'm getting these letters from hardware stores in the United States and teachers in Quebec, and they've really worked hard, and I have to respond to each one because there's so much love in it. At the same time, it's really logistically difficult to deal with, and for the best of reasons. But also just to think about how you might support. I don't know what Denmark's policy is in accepting, and I apologize because I didn't have time to do any research before this call in terms of accepting these, but also how can you support them if you are accepting refugees? How can you support them with work, being companies, and also settling into society? And that could have a massive impact as well. So there's different parts of the response that you can work with. And I think as companies in the long term, when, companies often say to me, emergencies, what can we do? And for companies in the affected areas, it's just keep operating. Those salaries have a huge multiplier effect. When we get peace, a lot of Ukrainians will return back. They really want to go home. So how do we make sure they have livelihoods and all these sorts of things? So that's incredibly important. And I should have kind of given an explanation of what OCHA does at the beginning, and my apologies for that. So we're the Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs, and our boss is the Undersecretary General, but also the Emergency Relief Coordinator. And we focus on coordination, advocacy, information management, and humanitarian financing for the benefit of the whole humanitarian community. So essentially, I act like a neutral broker. OCHA doesn't have an operational presence in that. When companies approach me and they have an offer, I can say this is the agency you should speak to, or the NGO, and I can facilitate that introduction. And then it's up to you respectively whether you would like to work together or not. I would say a lot of the I'm working very closely with Jacob, who's in Warsaw, I'm in Lviv now in Ukraine, and we talk every couple days. So, you know, a lot of this stuff is going towards UNHCR because a lot of people are focused on refugees, but there are other agencies doing enormous, you know, terrific work, including the Red Cross, IFRC, and a lot of really incredible national NGOs, both in Poland and in Ukraine itself. So that's a little bit of a summary. I hope that answered your question.
Karen, there's one other question, maybe to both you and Eva. What quantities are interesting when donating items? What is big enough? Asks Eva.
We actually had a conversation about this yesterday with the agencies, and they're coming back on what makes sense. I can't speak to that. Maybe Eva, you can speak to that for UNHCR. They said, I'm waiting to hear from our colleagues in the agencies, but hopefully we'll be able to provide that information for you by
And we know, Karen,
we have been in reactive mode for the last month, just by the sheer volume of it, and really making specific asks. You, Eva.
Thank you. Yes. For each item, there are different max quantities, and for some we have minimum quantities. So it's difficult to give a very short, clear answer. We are in the thousands, I can say that. But for some items, the threshold is not that high. Just as an example, we need bed linen, sheets, quilts, and pillows, minimum 5,000. So that's a sort of an example of a threshold. So if we talk about hundreds, or 200 pillows or 500 blankets, UNHCR is really not geared, and it simply takes up too much of our colleagues' time to organize the reception of that. So we need to work in quite large scale, but it depends. I mean, when we say we need warehouse space, that's a different discussion, because if there's an optimally placed warehouse in one of the neighboring countries where we need to store emergency aid, one warehouse can be fantastic help. So it's really an individual assessment from item to item. One flight from one of our global hubs, stockpiles, to the region is also just one flight is fantastic help. So it all depends on the items, I would say.
Thank you very much, Eva. I also want to pass the word to Jens Vandel, also calling from far away. Jens, you're the chairperson of the Danish United Nations Association, but you also have a very, very long history within the UN system.
Yes.
Would you give your perspectives on the role of business in Ukraine, and
Yes.
also maybe put some perspective on companies wanting to help and how to navigate the UN system when we talk about all the challenges that we see?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, just by word of introduction, apart from my current role as chairperson of the UN Association, I've been working for the UN more than 30 years. My latest role was Under Secretary General in charge of reform, but I have also worked a lot in the region, and I've been to Ukraine many times and followed Ukraine quite closely. So the way I'm thinking about this today is that there's an incredible amount of uncertainty in the current situation. But still, I think from a business point of view, it's good to create some kind of scenario universe. While we're acting, we also have to start thinking ahead and see whether certain things we do today are consistent with something that can help us longer term. So without me having some special ability to predict the future, I think there are three scenarios that one could start thinking about. And one is an independent Ukraine, which have agreed probably to accept the loss of some territories, but nevertheless, it is a Ukraine as we know it pre-war. And our outcome could very well be a more restricted Ukraine, where some Russian troops are still there, but there's some level of normalcy happening, in particularly to the west of the river. And then Dnieper, that's where the Kiev is. And the third scenario is a Russia, which is a Ukraine, which is some kind of a Russian vassal. It's either directly controlled by Russia or it's controlled through some kind of pro-Ukrainian president. Now, why does that matter? It matters because, of course, it tells a lot about the business environment, but it also tells a lot about who can act in the territory once the guns are silenced or semi-silenced. The more restricted Ukraine, the more Russian-controlled Ukraine, the fewer actors. And my view is that if it's a very open Ukraine, then EU, World Bank, many private sector financing will be available. If it's a very close scenario, we may end up in a situation where very limited access, but probably the UN, Red Cross, and a few other organizations can work effectively in the country. But on this background, then I just wanted to mention 5 distinct tracks, which I hope you will find helpful in analyzing how you want to organize your thinking and how you want to push the empathy for the Ukrainian people and push the fear of the war or the act so we can reduce the threat of war, push them inside this framework and then think through how that helps you. Firstly, the donations, and I think that has been covered incredibly well by Karen and Eva, so I will not say anything more about that. But there are some proactive stance that one can take. And first and foremost, in Denmark, it is very much hiring Ukrainians, because employing a Ukrainian creates a situation where there is a salary now, but that means also there's a flow through their salary to the situation in Ukraine. And here I'm very well aware that both the Danish industries and also Danish Chamber of Commerce, they've tried to kind of lower the expectations of how many jobs can be created. And also the Ukrainian ambassador has been out saying, please don't employ my people so they don't return to Ukraine. But I think the fact remains that remittances can play a role today, and it can play a role when some of the scenarios unfold in some kind of post-war situation. Using the Danish economy as a lever to push money into Ukraine and help Ukrainians through salaries, I think is important. So finding a job to one or more Ukrainian is supportive and it's effective. The next track is that Ukraine still produces. And this means that it's very important to see whether it's possible to buy something from Ukraine. They produce food, they produce maybe other things. Maybe we can buy something. Maybe we can sell it at a very good price in Denmark, put a flag on it, Ukrainian flag, and then this way create some financial flows to the country that can support them in this terrible situation. And that later can also be used and expanded if the situation allows. The third one, and probably equally important, is that the private sector can play a much bigger role in post-war Ukraine than we normally see in these kind of open war situations. It's the proximity of the EU, it is the level of development inside the country. And therefore, I think that for many companies, if you kind of feel an interest, start thinking about some investment plans. And here, it is not an investment in your own area, but it's investment in areas we know will matter. And some of them are obviously food production, but some of them is also energy, but it's also the energy efficiency, etc. And for those of you who know Ukraine already, that country is very energy ineffective. And this means that there's a lot that can be done with Danish technology and knowledge. And if we can do that in conjunction with the Ukrainian companies, it can really help develop the country and make the country come back on its feet through what will conceivably be a very long recovery. Then finally, this kind of investment discussion, it should be done as much as possible with Ukrainian and Danish companies. I think there are approximately 300 Danish companies operational in Ukraine. And if we can start thinking about what to do and do that in geographical terms, so you have ideas where you want to invest, then it's quite conceivable that we can help spread investments out in this huge country so many pockets can feel the support. And as Karen mentioned, just one salary in a local community has a big multiplier effect. So getting people with salaries on the ground early can really, really help. Now, the last track is maybe less obvious, but that is a much more internal track. If there's anything your company can do to reduce energy consumption, in particular gas consumption, then it is directly an act of support to Ukraine. So it needs to be green, it needs to be circular, or simply we need to optimize something so we use less of it. So these are kind of the tracks I wanted to mention. So in summary, based on the, you can say, Global Compact's 10 principles, donate, and that has been discussed, hire people and use that as an early way of finding out how can I do more by listening to them. You can put it quite directly, buy Ukrainian stuff, put a flag on it and sell it for a good price. Prepare post-war investment cases, supporting, you can say broadly, a sustainable development and focus on green. Reduce fossil fuel consumptions now in your own company and supply chain. And then finally, I really want to mention that partnerships is the way to go forward here. Partnerships among the Global Compact companies here in Poland, maybe in also Romania, in Hungary, and Slovakia. There are Global Compact networks in all these countries. And I think, Sarah, you have made a very good initiative here to see where you can use that. There's also Global Compact in Ukraine itself. So actions along these tracks, they mean that the business will support people. It will support the situation in Ukraine. It will add pressure on Russia to stop this illegitimate war. And then it will, at the same time, prepare for the medium term, where business, in my view, will play a central role in reestablishing a functional Ukrainian economy. So let me stop with this and thank you very much. Sarah, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jens, for giving us those perspectives. And I think that's the whole idea of this in partnering together, understanding what the challenges are, how best we can help and coordinate support in collaboration with colleagues all over the world and within the UN system. I'll sum up, but before I do that, I want to give the word to you, Fenja Yamaguchi-Fasting. You're the Deputy Director of the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Humanitarian Action, Civil Society and Engagement. So the word to you, Fenja. I know you also have some things going on.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's been a lot of speakers already, so I'm going to try and keep it short. Thank you so much for having us, the ministry, with you today as well. And thank you for organizing the meeting today. I think it's very, I'm guessing it's very useful for all the companies. We've experienced a lot of questions, a lot of requests for information, how to help at the ministry as well. So what I would just like to share with everyone, and I think some of those who participate today are already aware and have participated as well, but we did exactly in order to try and help companies match actually with the UN agencies. UNHCR is part of it as well, but UNHCR and the other UN agencies within NGOs to try and match companies and NGOs, civil society, who would like to help Ukraine with donations. So maybe matching people who can transport, people who have things, and these. So basically trying to match needs and will to help. And then, of course, we're in close contact with our Ukrainian counterparts, so we can check what are the needs. We get the updates all the time, so we are in contact with them and we know what the needs are from their perspective, and we can help facilitate the contact to our Ukrainian counterparts as well. So we have established this forum, which we called the Humanitarian Contact Forum. We had a first meeting on the 14th of this month, and we'll have the next meeting on the 31st. I'll write the email in the chat after this. You can also, if you look for, you can find more information about it on the website or on the ministry's website. But I'll just send the email in the chat, so people who are interested in participating or anyone who has a question about maybe if they have something they would like to donate, we can see if that's some of the things that I actually asked for. and then and any kind of dialogue regarding donations. So I'll write the email, and then please, anyone who's interested, you feel free to just write us on that email address. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fenja. There's one question, and I think that might be for you, Eva. Who to contact regarding donations of items in larger quantities? Would you share your email, or should we do that, or do you have a contact point in UNHCR?
And I am very happy to put my email in the chat. I have a long name, so it might go wrong if we start spelling it, but I'll put it in the chat. I have a team assisting me with processing these types of offers, any type of offer, and we'd be very grateful for any help we can have. So contact us, and we'll respond very quickly, and we'll have a dialogue on how we can move forward. So we are very grateful for any help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva. And we'll make sure to also share on our website the links to the flash appeal on our website. And I think what I've taken from me today is that we need to partner up. We need to work together. We need to understand the challenges on a short term, but definitely also on a longer term. Work together to create peaceful societies, and then also thinking about how you can use your leverage as a company to both make a donation right now, but also look at, okay, how can you hire Ukrainians if they come, trade, and also of course reducing gas, as Jens said. So we'll make sure to have a recording on our website. We'll link to the flash guide and to the OCHA appeal with the UNGC, and also refer you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and do our best to keep you updated, and make sure that the help and the efforts are coordinated. That's really what we need, so that they are in accordance with actual needs. So I want to say thank you to everyone that participated. We will share this recording as long as it's actual, maybe just 1 week, and then we will follow up. So thank you for joining us, and keep supporting the United Nations objectives for a more peaceful world where we thrive and where we work together. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.